he showed. Okay, he showed the alternator going in, but he didn't show the in between of finally getting the alternator. He said he had to go through 4 before he got a good one.
Oh, wow.
I went through 5 and the 5th one lasted 2 years or 3 years. Then I went to O'Reilly's alternator. I was like, screw this. I'm done.
Is it those built to last Duralast alternators?
Built to last, Duralast.
Actually, no, I recall during that whole debacle that the Duralast golds were kind of okay. Like I had the best luck with the Duralast golds back then.
Actually,
Can't say I've ever used them.
The engineer that commented on my channel, he agreed with me. He said back then the OE would recommend that if the OEs are not working, try the Duralast golds.
We have the same problems with the later Explorers. You can put 20 PCMs in it before you get a good one.
Yes, sir.
Lexus is the same way with aftermarket alternators, at least the 2000s Lexus. You could not put a nader in that thing. It would burn them up instantly. Like I put one in.
Look at all the comments on that video where all these guys that work for Nissan and Toyota and Lexus and all these guys, they're like, dude, that wasn't just a Ford thing. All of us had problems during those years in the 2000s. Like you could go through 3 or 4 alternators before you get a good one.
Yeah. And that really sucks. But fortunately, we don't have to deal with this on our 6.7s as much. But we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. Pinched wires, leaks, lights, and the occasional no start, unfortunately. Everybody is chiming in already. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening. All right, we have a lot on the docket here. Let's see who's got the lights. That's not me, is it?
No, that was me.
That's not me. No, that wasn't me. Okay, so Illumiduties and steel bodies.
Aaron, are you on a new headset?
Oh shit.
How about now?
It's better, I think.
Yeah. I'm talking. Can you hear me? Do I sound any better?
Yeah, it's more direct now in the mic instead of like in the room.
Does it? Hold on. My counterpart over here says it sounds weird.
It does. It sounds a little off, but it's better.
What does it sound like now? Do I have audio issue?
That sounds good.
That sounds good. Kind of a blend.
I heard you cut out.
Okay, we're switching back to the headphones. We're switching back. 3, 2, 1.
Wow. Does this sound different? Sounds like you're on a microphone.
It sounds like you're like talking on a pilot's microphone.
Crying out loud. I don't know. It could be the program. Whatever. Steel bodies, Illumiduties. Something that I'm doing at the shop right now, and they freaking suck. I was talking with Cody earlier about it, and I forgot he reminded me back in 2017 when the Illumiduties first came out, they had a recall on the trans lines. And yeah, I have trans lines. Go back how you were. These suck, huh? I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe I need to charge them.
You're good. You're more direct now than you were before because it sounds like you're more in the open when you don't have it on.
The
way unless you're doing a steel body, you can actually take those transline bundles apart and actually feed them in there one by one. The Illumiduty you can't because they're tethered at the part where it goes into the trans, so it's kind of a pain in the butt. And I don't know if you guys have ever had to deal with doing trans lines on them, but fortunately here in the Rust Belt, the transcooler and the quick disconnects where those are clipped in together are all snotty and all rusted, and it's just all they're not going to be coming apart. So what are you guys doing to do that? Are you guys replacing trans lines? Have you ever do those Ford Ford Beard
Yeah.
Tech. Have you had to do those? They suck. I don't know if you guys remember doing the 6.0s. Remember the toilet paper roll? You guys remember the toilet paper roll and the 4R100s? The
I didn't do it.
5R.
I don't deal with rust where I'm at, man.
5R110s, I think. I think those were the torque shifts. Yeah, they can be a pain. We had a big discussion over the short I had where I was talking about replacing the trans gasket. And do you do it? Do you not do it? Do you clean it? Do you reuse it? And a lot of guys said, replace it. But a lot of people were saying to reuse it and cleaning up the surface with, some Scotch Brite pads and whatnot. But I have usually replaced them unless the customer said they don't want it. But sup DS, what up TJ? TJ's got a video coming out. Y'all should stay tuned to the channel. Starring Limitless and a 20 Super Duty with some flashy lights. Before we get into Ford Boss's alternator debacle, I had an interesting person reach out this week, or actually yesterday and today, and he has a 2015 F550 wrecker rollback, and he said that he has not been able to get it started for the last couple of weeks. He's been trying all this self-diagnosis. He doesn't really have wiring diagrams or the pinouts for anything. And he says that he had to replace his frame-mounted fuel pump. He noticed it wasn't going on. And aloha, I just sent something in the mail to Hawaii. And he is checking for power. And he says that he's got no power at the connector. So I started to ask him, I said, what is going on with, how did this, does this just shut off? What happened? And he said he was on the side of the road and actually slid off down. And when he got to the bottom of the hill, he hit a small car. Like, wait. And this is like, he's gave me all this information and is just now, I'm just finding this out now. I'm like, oh man, dude, are you by the truck? Go over to the passenger side door and open up right between the dash. You'll see a little cover. It's got a little gas pump on it. Pop that cover off, stick your finger in and hit the button. And he said, as soon as he hit the button, he felt it.
Inertia switch.
Dude, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, go turn that key on, man. He turns the key on. He's like, oh man, I can hear the fuel pump. What? So I don't know if anybody's had that happen to you in a steel body, but if you have not been able to get your truck started, it's just cranking, it may be worth checking that inertia switch. Had it happen to me once. I was down at the body shop and they couldn't get a truck started, and we kind of stumbled on this. And when he said he hit a small car, I'm like, yeah, it may have been just enough. And lo and behold, look at we have Michael Chan coming in straight from Toronto. This gentleman's another technician from a Ford dealer up in the Great White North. He wanted to jump in here on the evening chat. What's up, Daryl? I just seen you up in there. And let's see, what do we have going on up here? The fact you guys are the reason I have my Super Duty. Welcome, Rankins. Oh, there he is. He doesn't have the little kitty headphones.
There she is.
Connecting the audio.
Connecting.
I don't think he can hear.
Satellites turning, connecting.
Yeah, everything's still a little glitchy.
Yeah, we're all having technical difficulties this evening. I don't know why. Kenneth says, you see my question? Any of you have any info? Question. Let's see. Go back up. I don't see. Kenneth, yo boys, is there any updates for the 22 F250 for clunky shifting? It's very erratic. Updates, I don't know specifically, but I would be checking to see if your TCM is updated and clearing out the adaptive learn tables and the keep alive memory. Actually, this gentleman right here, Daryl, he's got a thanks, buddy. He's got a 7.3 and kind of did the same thing, reset all the adaptive tables, made sure the TCM and PCM were up to date. So, you know,
Is he gonna have to? Is he gonna have to back out and then come back in?
I don't know. Michael, can you hear me? Okay, go down to where it says your microphone. See the microphone tab at the bottom? Okay, you'll see the little arrow next to it. Go in there and hit connect audio. You should be able to.
I think he's there. It went away.
Oh, yeah, how about now? Talk.
Or maybe he stopped the audio. That's why.
Maybe.
And he has to reconnect now.
Kenneth, no, you're gonna have to go to the dealer, buddy. There's a scan tool called FDRS that we have to use, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you'll have to get done with the scan tool. Brian actually was fortunate enough to get his truck done. We had a little session down south where we reprogrammed his truck, got his TCM, and cleared some adaptive tables. And sometimes they just get funky. We need to update them. So it just, they're computers. I don't know. Patrick F says, A-Rod, to piggyback on my question yesterday, I was sent the wrong hardware kit dash cam. I was looking at getting an OBD powered one. I've read a lot on these and it looks like it's safe. Your thoughts? I've actually never seen that for the dash cam.
Let
They
him
got
get a mic. Let mic check, Michael. Let him mic check real quick.
Microphone checker 1 2 1 2.
Still no, huh?
Yeah, that little thing's gone where it was saying his
Yeah, where it was saying connecting.
uh-huh.
Yeah, we can't hear.
How about you leave and come back? Like exit out and then go back to your email and click the link again.
But say the magic word next time, please.
Abracadabra. Samson, Samson, Samson.
Guy Ryan's got a question. Oh, that's a good question from Ryan Nolan.
What do we
Says,
got?
My manual locking hubs on my 22 F350 trimmer are extremely hard to turn. Actually can't turn by hand. Do these get corroded at the hubs?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. There's a lot of corrosion, moisture buildup in there. It's very, very easy for that stuff to start happening if they're not used periodically.
Well, what's weird about it is a 22. It's kind of early.
I know, but it still happens though.
Yeah.
I find that the guys who do the car washes, sometimes they get corroded faster. I don't know. Like you'll go and I make it a habit of turning mine, but when I go and I'll turn them and you'll see soap actually come out of them because it's just all built up with water and nasties. But yeah, no, those should be turned no problem. How many Ford Senior Masters we got here? Ooh.
But
Please
eventually,
help.
if you get to the point where you can't turn those no more, they absolutely won't turn.
Yeah.
You can warranty that under powertrain.
I don't know if those are covered on powertrain or not. They might be.
And I've done it before. Years ago, I sold a truck, and a guy's like,
What?
"Before I buy the truck, I want you to warranty these hubs because I never turned them. They didn't turn no more." Took it into the dealer, said, "Hey, warranty that under powertrain." and the truck was out of bumper to bumper, and they straight up warranted those hubs on their powertrain. So
Yeah, all right. All right, all right.
I can see how that could be a possibility because it being part of the four-wheel drive system.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
If it's the lubricated component, I think that's what falls under powertrain, at least in GM land. So if it's got any kind of lubricant in there, or if it shares lube with the axle, then that would fall under warranty, I think. Right?
The way
Although-
these are installed with there's a lubricant, but it's not like something that's constantly lubricated.
Okay.
I was always
Yeah.
told in basic layman's terms, anything that makes the vehicle move would be powertrain for a
So-
service.
Ford boss, what do you recommend to do to prevent it? Do you like spray wax on it, or what are you thinking?
What I typically just do is while I have them in the air, while I'm servicing any of the Super Duties, I will purposely go around and I'll actually actuate them back and forth, back and
Yep.
forth, back and forth. And I'll get a feel for if they're binding up. And every single Super Duty I touch, I will do that too, because I want to get an idea. Am I sending this guy out of there? And then a week from now, he's telling me while he's turning, he's got some kind of like, I can hear from Michael's computer now, I think.
Ah,
Ah,
he's there.
Want to get an idea.
We're going far north, so it's a little laggy. It's okay.
I can't understand anything.
These past few
Sounds
weeks,
like a-
we've been
sounds
going
like a
crazy.
signal.
Michael, mute your YouTube window. Hey, thanks XLT 250. XLT 250. I like that name. That's funny.
There's a
T-
good one here from John Doe that even Ray might have an insight here. It says,
What we
"Hey guys,
got?
I replaced my vacuum hub seals, and four-wheel drive will still not work unless I manually lock them."
hmm,
Okay,
maybe the
So-
vacuum's not working.
maybe.
Is
I
there a
mean,
way to manually apply vacuum to that? Say if you had like a vacuum pump.
most definitely.
Yeah, you need like a
Yeah.
handheld pump with a check valve, and it's a tool you can get.
About how much pressure you think? Well, what would you call vacuum pressure? I forget what they call that.
Vacuum pressure. That sounds like a conundrum.
It does. Well, you can only achieve 29.9 inches mercury of vacuum.
Okay.
Like you,
And technically, if you talk to people that are like really geeky with this stuff, they'll actually tell you vacuum is a source of some type of pressure, and they'll have some kind of scientific explanation on why it is and everything else. And I was like, dude, I ain't trying to think about all that, man. It's vacuum to me. And I think it's right at, what is it, like 21, 22 inches of vacuum is normal, or somewhere
Mhm.
around there, 23, somewhere
It
in there.
also lowers the boiling point.
Are they all constant vacuum though?
No. The F-150s are constant vacuum, but I think the Super Duties are reversed, right?
They need vacuum to be in 4x4.
Yeah,
Right, but it's
so-
momentary vacuum time though, doesn't it?
They'd be
Moment?
playing vacuum all time.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I always thought it was only when you turn the selector knob, you're disengaged, that it would have vacuum momentarily. Maybe I'm thinking about older Super Duties. I don't know.
You might be thinking 150.
They just asked me that the other day. What's the difference between the four-wheel drive actuation and the 150 and the Super Duties, or the 250 and above? And my explanation was basically by the book. I actually pulled up the descriptions of both operations, and it said that the F-150, when vacuum is applied, the hubs are released. And on the Super Duty, when vacuum is applied, the four-wheel drive is engaged. It read the opposite in the description of operation.
Hmm.
Greg Baker, yes. Yes. All wheel brakes anyway. 20
So
we're
for
having-
guys listening this vacuum hub issue, first of all, we need to figure out if he's getting. I mean, he's got new seals, but is he actually getting vacuum to the seals, and why would that be?
The first
about the
step
check
would
valve?
be, before you do anything, to pull the line at each one of the connection points and put it in four-wheel drive, and put your hand down there, put your finger down there, and see if you feel vacuum. If you feel vacuum and it feels like it's pretty sufficient for a little line, even 20 inches of vacuum on a little line like that might not feel like a lot, but overall, because of the way the system operates, it's actually a lot. And if you had a little gauge and you were interested in doing more of your work, you can run to Harbor Freight, you can run anywhere and get one if you're not going to be using it all the time, or you can find a Mighty Vac and invest in a decent one and just have it, in your garage or something like that. Stick it on the end of the line, put it in 4-wheel drive, and then read what it pulls that gauge to or pulls it down to. Because some of them will be pressure or some of them will be vacuum. You can have systems that you can flip a switch back and forth, and you can have a pressure and a vacuum one, or you can have just a vacuum one. So you got to figure out what type of system you have if you buy the tool, but make sure you got vacuum first.
So he's got new seals, so he probably doesn't have vacuum. What would cause his truck to not have vacuum at those lines?
You got to work your way up the line.
Yeah, we got a
You gotta-
couple of variables that, when Ford Boss knows when we put these seals in, we have to use that special tool. You
Yeah.
can't reuse those vacuum seals. So, okay, obviously you have the 4-wheel drive taken apart, maybe doing ball joints, and you put these new hub seals back in. Did we install them with the correct tool?
You can
You
always
know.
verify your smoke test too, to see if there's any vacuum leaks. That to be pretty useful.
I'm talking about I'm talking about guys that are at home that don't have access to the tools that we have. The number one best way to do it is pull the line and make sure you got vacuum on the end of it. If you don't have that vacuum on the end of it, you're going to have to work your way back up the system. Do you have a break in the line somewhere? Is that one of the routing points that come around a strut tower under a fender apron or something like that? If you want to bypass all that, go all the way up to the solenoid, pull the line off. And while it's in 4-wheel drive, do you got vacuum at the nipple? If you got vacuum at the nipple, but you don't have anything coming down to the line, you got to break in the line somewhere. The simple stuff first. And then if you do have a vacuum machine, which they sell them pretty cheap, and I've used a vacuum, a smoke machine now. I mean, a vacuum machine, a smoke machine now more than I have ever used a smoke machine, just because I always neglected it. So Mike's right. It's so important that tool saves me so much time when I'm actually utilizing it. And then I don't have to go grab 2 or 3 or 4 different things. I could just stick the smoke tester on there. And I'm like, oh, there's my leak right there. Now I'm not searching all over the place looking for it.
Now that the Mustang Mach-E has been released, we all got dropped that smoke machine we're supposed to check the battery cases with. That tool can be used for so many other purposes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, Tom, that's a funny comment. Eddie Campos. All right, everybody, listen to this. This is kind of weird. Any idea on why I'm getting the codes B1D00 through B1D03? Circuit short to battery or open after replacing headlight for some LEDs. Now that's a strange one. Unless you got something wrong with that LED light or something's back feeding through something. Did you try putting the old light back in and see if you're still getting that fault? Very unusual.
Are we talking about a headlight bulb or the whole headlamp assembly?
He just says replacing the headlight for some LEDs.
What brand?
Doesn't say.
Oh, so we don't know if it's a bulb or an assembly. I'm guessing it's an assembly.
Guy says BCM thinks the circuit's open because not enough load. What up, Hammer Down? No load. Super Mega Cliff. Okay.
And you have to realize a lot of these new systems have. This is one of the things that I ran across that I was surprised years ago when I made this video. I was telling Aaron before we started this, I was talking about how the field effect transistors on these systems will monitor what's going on, and it could be the simplest change in something that it doesn't like, and it will shut down that circuit and set a code. And I actually talked about some of those codes that would set with the lights, and one of them was like a B100R or something like that. And I was like, the system seen that something wasn't right with the tail light, and it shut the circuit down to save it from destroying itself or something, further damage from happening in the future. And the same thing happens with the LED lights as well. If they're not set up correctly, I had a customer come in today and I put his lights on and I thought his lights were blown because they were flashing so fast. I said, something's wrong with his left turn signal. And I flipped it over to the right and I was like, something's wrong with his right turn signal. Then why is it flashing fast? Then I get out of the vehicle, and he's got these LED lights on that are just hyper flashing like crazy, and it's making the
Yep.
vehicle. And I was
Yep.
like, wow, this is I don't think this is set up correctly.
Now with the blinkers and stuff, when you're putting the LEDs in those, you can go and force scan and correct that. But
Mhm.
put a headlight in and it's doing all that, I would be very concerned about that brand, whether it's a whole housing or just a bulb. When you put the bulb in, it should already account for that. For just a headlight, it should already account for the load and simulate that load of a normal halogen light. It shouldn't throw any codes or have any problems. So if you're getting codes after doing a bulb, maybe switch those out for a different brand and put the OEMs back in there. I don't know.
That's what I've noticed. That's just exactly what DS said. If I get a good quality LED headlight, I don't have those problems. But if I get something that's not, they haven't really put a lot of engineering in or thought about these things, and it's just a cheap light, it'll cause all kinds of issues.
You need to get the ones that say CAN bus on them because they have the resistors built into them.
Yeah, I think the Auxito ones have those
They
built
do.
in. We did a video on that a while ago, and a couple of clients reached out. They had gotten the actually Krautster. He got the fog lights, the rears, the headlights, the turn signals, and even got DS had put in the turn signals, but they were switchbacks. So they were white and then switched back to amber when the turn signal came on. They were really slick.
That's what I've
all
got in the front of
integrated in
mine.
that little bulb. Pretty.
That's what I got in the
pretty
front of
rough.
my truck, the switchbacks.
I like it. I like it a lot. How many guys with Illuma duties are having issues with water and fuel? This is the third trucker
Kid.
that I've been dealing with, and for whatever reason, the dealer can't figure it out, and I don't understand what the ordeal is. Sometimes when you leave the connector off when doing PM, it can be kind of tricky to get the water and fuel light to go off because it's not just plugging it in. There's a little more you got to do, clear codes and blah blah blah. There are some special service functions that you need to access. I was doing it with my coworker one day, and it took us like at 30 minutes. We're sitting here, we're like, what is going on? How come we can't get this light to go off? And it wound up having to find that part of the PCM memory where those counters are stored. It was kind of an ordeal to figure it out. We did have codes, but the message was still displaying in the IC. So whatever, we got it. But I've been finding some wiring issues actually where if you pay attention to where the harness comes off the frame and goes inboard, it jets over to the width sensor, that bend, for whatever reason, it gets a chafe in the convolute. So if you guys are experiencing the water and fuel light coming on while it's getting wet, going through a car wash, or something strange like that, I would highly advise that you check that little bend where it comes down and it goes whip, whip. You should check it out. Speaking of giveaways, we have one more thing actually we're going to be giving away, not tonight, but we have a air filter filtration system, 467 20 and up. But yeah, I have mailed out everything. I'm wondering if everybody get it. Hammer down.
I'm still working on mine. I got 2 of them boxed
Hammer
up.
down.
I've got like
Said the
5.
wrong name on here.
Hey,
Listening.
I've got 2 of them boxed up. The other one I got to box up, and I've just been busy.
I know.
I've had like 5 electrical problems that have been haunting me, and I don't even leave the dealership. When I get there, I just stay there. So I haven't even been taking a lunch break to go send the stuff off or anything. It's literally sitting on top of my box.
Word.
I'll get it out. It's just, you guys have seen the issues that I'm dealing with at work
Dude,
right now.
I feel you. I
I
feel
can
you.
see the frustration for sure. When you were talking about the alternator, I think was that today you were talking about doing these alternators, and you were saying we're not
it's
getting it for the labor.
Battery draws, modules not communicating, people's heat not working, alternators not charging, going through entire systems, ripping out the entire inside of people's trucks to figure out, is something grounded, is something pinched, do I have to start unplugging every module on board to stop this draw? And 2003 F-150, I've been working on this thing for a month when all these other independent dealers kind of gave up on it and said they didn't want to touch it anymore. They couldn't find the problem after throwing alternators and batteries and stuff in it. The draw was still there. And then it's kind of interesting that we have access to the scan tools and stuff that we do, how much we take certain things for granted. I was about to just throw in the towel for a little bit and reset. And I was like, wait a second. I'm going to go hook IDS up real quick, and I'm going to go into the gem module in this 03 F-150, and I'm going to shut the key off. And while the module is still online communicating, I'm going to monitor the PIDs that are on the screen for the door latches, the interior lights, and the door ajar light is different than the latch. There's two different PIDs. So even though light's not on and you're not getting a message on the dash, I seen it go, and I'm going to talk about this in a video. It should be pretty interesting, and it should help out a lot of other techs when dealing with a lot of these older trucks, the older Super Duties, F-150s. I was looking at driver door ajar light or lamp, and it would say,
Kobe.
latch failed, latch failed, latch failed, latch failed, latch failed. And it would happen so fast, they would not set a warning light on the dash while you were driving. So it would happen all the time, but it would be such a quick in and out that it would keep the module alive when the key was off, but it would never let you know the door was ajar on the dash. And I reached inside the door and unplugged the door ajar switch. And back then you could just twist the switch and drop it out and pop a new switch in there and then connect it back. And that was typically the fix for your problem. I reached in there and unplugged this thing, and all of a sudden it quit, fail, latch, fail, latch, fail, latch, fail, latch over and over again. And I let it sit for 4 days, came back and started the truck up like it was brand new. What it was doing is it was holding that gem module and that security module online, and it was just enough draw over a day to pull down the battery. And that was the fix. Now I actually got to perform the latch replacement. And on top of that, everything else I'm dealing with is a nightmare.
Freaking nightmare.
And you don't get paid for all that, man. You know, what do? Go back to the customer every single time and say, I need 2 more hours. 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 And by the time you're done, you've exceeded the value of the truck.
That shit beats you up, dude.
It's terrible because you don't want to fail. You don't want to send them to somebody else and say, you know what, I give up. I don't want to be that guy that at the other dealerships or independent shops that had that persona like, well, he didn't find the problem, he gave up on it. No, I
Yep.
want to find it. But then you lose, 10, 15 hours of your time in the long run. And it's like I'm only getting paid 4 to do the job, but I've put 15 in it.
It's the dealer's the last spot, the last step. It's like, oh, we can't figure out. Well, better take it to the dealer.
I don't know.
Like,
It's
the
gotta be a
dealer's got to
better
figure it
system.
out.
There's got to be a better system for you. You said you did what now? You said how many hours you put in?
I've got about a solid 2 to 3 days worth of work in this truck. And the only reason I did this is because the customer came to the dealership and said, when I pull this fuse, I don't have my vehicle will start the next day, no problem. When the service writer gave me the vehicle, I was told the customer wants you to remove the radio because that's going to stop the battery draw. Somebody's already diagnosed it and they don't know how to remove the radio. And I was like, okay, seriously? I'm going to get paid an hour to go do 20 minutes worth of work.
We just had a very similar issue like that. It was on an Escape. It was an 18 Escape. Go back about a year or so ago. Another dealer somewhere in Montreal had done the short block on it. It's a 1.5, but whoever did the job did a real hack job of it. Like, you know how there's all those coolant hoses and all that in the front of the engine. Yeah, that wasn't routed correctly. Well, anyways, this guy kept blowing a 10 amp fuse in the battery junction box, and it was the same fuse, but the difficult part of it was it wasn't doing it right away, but it would do it consistently enough that it was an ongoing problem. And that fuse services a whole bunch of things, like the coolant auxiliary pump is one of them. I think one of them is the AC, what is that? The VDC there on the side of the AC compressor, right?
Yeah, the variable displacement unit.
Yeah.
It's got the double connector on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Plus, the harness itself was not routed correctly. Whole bunch of things. But anyways, this went to our electrical guy first. He couldn't. So what he did was he called an engine harness on it. Guess who was the one that replaced the engine harness? Well, yeah, because it's difficult. So, anyways, I did the job. No problem. I've been into so many of these 1.5s. I don't even look anymore. You know how you do it gets so repetitive. You already have things memorized.
Yeah, you know where it's at. Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, when I finished the job, we got one of our shuttle drivers to go and road test the vehicle for a good half hour, putting on at least I'd say about 20 kilometers on. So what's that? 12 miles about? Yeah. Anyways, still the fuse didn't blow, so we released it to the customer. About I think a week later, he came back in. Fuse was blowing again. This time, it stayed in our shop there. With the electrical tech, they're playing with it for about 2 or 3 days. So it sounds like what you just went through there, Rich.
Yeah.
Long story short, you know what it ended up being? I don't know how he concluded this, but underneath the passenger floor, underneath the carpet, there's a wiring that's underneath the seat there that goes to the main connector to the seat there.
Yeah.
Apparently, a part of that harness was intermittently rubbing through to the metal body under the vehicle.
Yeah.
Right. So, interestingly enough, how this came about was apparently it would blow more frequently if this customer, if he had a passenger sitting in the front seat. So,
Really?
driving by like with no passenger there, it wouldn't blow as frequently, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
back to what boss was saying is like 15 hours. It's like, man, it kind of sucks that, that had to happen. But when you think about it, 2003.
Here's why I did that. The customer came to pick up the vehicle and I pulled the radio out and I put it in the seat. I did what I was told. I'm a good boy sometimes and I do what I'm told. So I did what I was told. And I had a lot of other work going on. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to make an hour to do 20 minutes worth of work. Yeah, I'm going to pull that radio. Yeah, some other shop diagnosed it. Yeah, Grandpa Henry said, pull this.
Grandpa Henry.
So I pulled what Grandpa Henry said. And the guy came to pick up his truck. And the porter went out to the back and he went to go start the vehicle and bring it. And he was like, Rich, the vehicle just clicks and it's only been sitting out there for a few hours. And I was like, oh, come on, man. Fuck. So I go out there and I'm trying to, I jump it and I'm like, look, if you want to take the vehicle now, I'm going to give you one of my nice jump packs in case you run into a situation again. I want the vehicle back. If you'll bring it back to me, I feel bad. And he was like, oh, they didn't tell you about the red fuse and this and that and all this. I said, no, they didn't tell me about any of that stuff. They told me to pull the radio out of it because somebody diagnosed it as a radio draw. So I pulled he said, show me the fuse. And I said, well, that red fuse is a 50 amp fuse. That's all the power supply for the internal gem module that's inside the cab. That's like your body control module on the older vehicles. The reason you were losing your draw is because something inside the vehicle was causing the draw, and it wasn't necessarily the radio. And they didn't tell me any of that stuff.
And this is exactly why I hate getting involved in stuff where I wasn't the original diagnosing tech. The time when the advisor comes to you and says, Mike, I need you to quote out part X that was diagnosed by tech A and all that, because this is the kind of thing that ends up happening in the end. You don't know the whole story from the beginning.
I
The
felt
crazy
bad.
part is, with it being a 2003, we're in 2023.
So
for you to diagnose it properly, it will probably cost too much.
So I feel bad that we did this to the customer. Aaron, you know how that feels. You guys know how that feels. That you look like a bag. You look like a bag of ass to the customer because you guys have dropped the ball. And I said, look, I feel terrible right now. Can you can you think about this? Like, take the truck for a few hours or whatever, take it home. Maybe if you have time, drop it back off tomorrow, and I will find your problem. I'm not going to guarantee it's today. I'm not going to guarantee it's tomorrow, but I will not give up on you until I find the problem with this truck, because I feel terrible on how we treated you.
Or
And-
boss, you have a good heart.
So the guy came back after like a half hour and was like, you know what? I really trust you, and I'm really impressed with how you handled everything. I'm going to leave the truck with you. My grandmother does have an extra vehicle. My grandfather died and left this truck to me, and we both want this truck fixed because it's like really clean. It only has like 92,000 miles on it. It's a Heritage Edition F-150, which I've physically never seen a 2003 Heritage Edition F-150, and they're just the two-tone color and the badging and stuff is, to me, that's a beautiful truck.
You mean
And
2004?
2003, 2004, whatever it was.
Yeah, because it's the old 97 to 2003 body style. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so I felt bad for the guy, and I said, look, this is the update. I'm going to take it out. I'm out of my own pocket. I'm going to buy a gem module for this thing because I have a feeling the gem module's bad. The gem module wasn't the problem. And I'm like, I'm digging further. I'm going further into the system, and I get down to the vehicle security module, which is, Mike, I don't know if you remember, but it's all the way up on the firewall, up underneath the back, kind of tucked away the dash. And there's two connectors all the way over to the left in it. Not all of the trucks had it. Some of them did, some of them didn't have it. And it was only 2 years, like 2001, maybe 3 years, 2001 through 2003, that had the white box security module. All the other ones were black, and all the other ones after it were black. But those particular years were white. And I ordered one and I put it in. That didn't fix it. So I rip apart the entire truck on the inside, the doors. I fix things that were broken, find a bunch of missing screws where people have like done things in the past, half cab doors that won't even open. I fixed all this stuff while I was there for this guy. Every single thing working as I'm going back together, and the draw is still there. And I thought to myself, what in the world am I doing? Why am I going this far? Why am I doing this for this customer? Why do I care this much? And then I'm like, before I give up on this, I want to see if I can turn the key off while monitoring PIDs for the gem module with all the door latches pulled up, the lights pulled up and everything. And I caught that one single PID that would say fail latch, fail latch, fail latch. And that's what it was. I unplugged the connector for the door latch, and the draw quit completely.
Well, the challenge is when these vehicles get so old, and that's a long time on the road.
Yeah.
You still had live data though when you had key off. Usually, the moment you shut the key off, the live data just goes dead.
Not for the gem module.
Really?
Because it's all tied into the battery, the battery saver relay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a 5 amp fuse that powers the leg on like a 10 or 15 amp fuse. And when you shut the key off, you lose communication, your PCM, your cluster and stuff like that. But your gem module, you can still see your door PIDs and your light PIDs.
Still
And
woke up.
By chance, I was like, I really don't want to give up on this guy. So I saw it. Ford doesn't offer it no more. It says now there's an update in the computer on the Ford system that says if you want to buy any component in this door latch assembly, there's an updated part number, and you have to buy the entire assembly as a unit, which is $525 at list price.
What the fuck?
And it was like a week out in order to even get it. And I said, no, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do this to this guy. Go on Napa, go on AutoZone, go somewhere and find a door latch switch for this. And Napa had it. It was a dormant part number. It was a brand new switch assembly. And you just twist it out, drop it down, twist the new one in, drop it, plug your connector in. And as your door latch moves back and forth, it triggers the plunger on top of that thing that you can just snap out of there and put a new one in. And it was $21.
I'll be damned.
Speaking of prices, has anybody noticed the astronomical prices for rear brake rotors on Super Duties lately?
Oh my God, I know.
$421 for a rear brake rotor.
303 a piece USD.
That's if you can even get them. We have a problem getting them sometimes. We have to wait a week for them.
We have all techs here. Rain Man, Ford Beater Tech. We got USD. We got Canadian. if you guys remember Meat Man Matt has a good question. Meat Man Matt says, and I quote, I saw this floating around the forums. Should we charge customers for jumping vehicles and charging batteries to get them in and out of the shop? I say no, end quote, Meat Man Matt. Now that is a really good question. That is taking our time. We are going to have to, I find myself a lot of times, in fact, I just did it today. We have 2 huge batteries in a box, a metal box. It's a big battery roll around thing. It's got 2 air filled tires, a bunch of cables. You got to roll it out, quite a good distance. It could be snow, it could be raining. It takes, let's just say it takes you literally a half an hour between getting your gear on, going out to the truck, cleaning the truck off, jumping it. Oh man, I got to go in and get the jump pack because this one's not big enough. You walk back in and get your jump. So you got 2 things on the battery. Is that included in our 1-hour diagnostics? Should we be charging customers to do this?
So here's where the caveat is to that. Yes and no. If it's still under bumper to bumper, obviously, you can write it in to get paid. If it's outside of bumper to bumper and it's not covered by warranty anymore, 100% that is on the customer. There is no discussion about that. That is not our fault. That is not our problem. That is 100% supposed to be covered by the customer. Our time is valuable. We are providing a service to them. If we have to do that, technically we're supposed to stop, go tell the service advisor, hey, look, I know I got my hour diag, but it's going to take me a half hour to get this truck in here because the batteries are stone cold on it. I may have to pull them out and put them on the rotunda for a while I'm doing another job and then go back to that truck. You have to be paid for that time. That is not something you just give away.
What is this rotunda battery test are you talking about? Is that something we just like hook up really quick and like boom, boom, bada bing and
No,
bing,
I
bang,
mean,
bam?
it's a tester. It's a tester that you put a given set of parameters in there. If it's for warranty purposes, you got to punch a VIN in. You got to punch the cold cranking amps in. You got to say whether or not it's a top mount, a side mount, all this other in vehicle, out of vehicle. And it could be a pain in the butt sometimes because a lot of times you have to do this testing, not just one time, it's multiple times just to get a printout.
Yeah.
And how
ACES
long do
code.
these tests take?
Some of
2
them
5
hours.
minutes?
Some of them can be 20 minutes. Some of them can be an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Mhm. All for ACES code.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And then how much do we get paid
0.4.
to test
10654
a
C.
battery? Now, did you say C1? Is that including an overlapping op that includes replacing the battery too, Michael?
Pretty much.
Oh, for crying! Now, was this a F-Series pickup or was this a Transit? Does that include taking the front seat out? Come on.
I haven't been in a transit yet, thank God. Knock wood. Actually, I haven't been in any transits in a long while.
And then
Oh
if
my
you,
goodness.
if you
Wait till
really
you
get-
have, wait to have to balance Mach-E batteries and Lightning batteries.
Yeah.
12, 13, 14 hours to balance.
Well,
Oh
I've
God,
been,
I hate that.
I've been doing a lot of research on lead acid batteries over the last couple years, and it seems like if you kill a lead acid battery and it's all the way discharged, stone cold, dead, that battery is technically damaged. So if a vehicle's out in the lot and you go to get it and spend a couple days, whatever, and the battery's dead, not only did you have to jump it, you basically should probably consider just replacing that battery at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot
I
of
would.
theory to it. I mean, there's a lot of theory to that, and there's a lot of truth, depending on how much time you want to put into it. I've revived some lead acid batteries by slow charging them, but it takes days to do that at a very, very slow pace. So, I mean, a lot of us don't have time for that. That's something a DIY guy does at home in his garage and can set a couple batteries off to the side and monitor them throughout the day here and there. But we don't have time to do that at a dealer. We don't have somewhere where we can put them and just come back every once in a while and monitor and babysit them. We got too much going on. So 9 times out of 10, you're replacing the battery. And most of the time, a lot of these Super Duties that come in, they're not even taken care of, man. The batteries are all gunked up and gooped up on the top, and there's corrosion across the strap that holds everything in, and the terminals are all corroded and rotten. None of that stuff is taken into account when we have to pull those batteries out of there and clean all that shit up just so we can get the batteries out and properly test them and put them back in. So none of that is written into anything. This is just 0.4, and that's what you get.
Well, you know what? I just did mine. They were just like you're describing, all yellow. They had yellow all over the straps and everything. And I mean, the terminals were okay. I just took them out, dropped in new ones, and then I'm like looking at that yellow stuff. So I just sprayed them off at the car wash while they were on. So you can't see it, but I'm sure it's some like under there.
Yeah.
And
Did you
A lot of
reset your
times-
battery system?
no, I didn't do anything like that. Am I going to notice a check engine, or what am I going to notice?
On a gasser, if you have the BMS sensor on it, and you've replaced the batteries, resetting the BMS system will work. But if you are just cleaning up the batteries that are already there, and it's just a preventative maintenance thing on your part, you don't really need to touch the BMS. But a lot of times guys will service those batteries. They'll clean everything up. They'll put new batteries in because they're worried about all the corrosion and stuff that was there. Maybe they've been in there for a few years. The health timer for that battery will time out in the data logger, and it'll start giving you a BMS light, or it'll start disabling functions of the vehicle that are non-essential for the vehicle to run. And I have a lot of people that come back to me from previous videos a year ago or 2 years ago, and they're like, oh my God, on my truck, I did what you said after I replaced the battery, and all of a sudden my auto stop started working. My proximity alarm works. Now it's detecting as I'm getting closer to it instead of it disabling before, and my passive touch and everything is now working where it wasn't working before. So that BMS ties into a lot of stuff at the rate of which it charges the battery, what type of mode that it needs to be in. So the BMS has a lot to do with, but that's on, the systems that have it, not the Super Duties.
So
Not
the pair of batteries that I have, they have been weak for at least like the last 4 or 5 months, and I've just been putting it off. But you leave the truck alone for a week, and all of a sudden it needs to be jumped. So I've been starting it every other day, every day, whatever. Obviously, I'm not working a lot right now. I'm in the 40s and 50s, so I'm not doing much with it right now.
Yeah.
And I finally was like, I got a tester, tested it, failed all the tests. So
You don't have a BMS sensor on your battery though, do you?
no, it's on you're talking about the thing that goes right on the battery?
Like
It's on the negative
terminal?
cable.
Oh, no, yeah, I don't have nothing on the negative terminal, no.
So you don't have anything to reset. A lot of the older ones, they had a clamp that would go around the cable, and that would just indicate like an amp clamp would. If you put it over, it would detect state of charge, like what it was actually doing. But it wasn't something that you could just go in there and just reset. Like the method that I use with the flashing the brake lights 5 times and hitting the brake pedal 3 times, and then it resetting the BMS, like it flashing. That is only for the vehicles that have the sensor on the negative terminal.
Okay.
That's like I just put out that video because my Ranger, the auto start stop wasn't working. And when you go to look at it, it would say vehicle charging. And I've tested my battery a few times and it was getting pretty weak. It was at about 70%. So I put a new battery in it, reset the BMS, auto start stop works. It's got a brand new battery in it.
So that's the purpose of that function, is in reasons where the system sees a certain amount of days that battery's been in there without it being reset, or it's detecting a derated state of charge, it starts disabling non-essential functions for the vehicle to operate. And that's what it does. Like it'll start with auto start stop, and then maybe you'll walk up to the vehicle where it used to detect your distance, and it would unlock the vehicle as you're walking up. It might disable that, or the passenger smart touch system where it would lock and unlock. It'll disable the passenger door, but it'll leave the driver door working because it starts to say, I've seen techs and I've seen independent shops misdiagnose that, where they'll send it to the dealer and it'll be auto start stop doesn't work, and then the passenger doors, the passive touch doesn't work, and they ask me, well, I mean, I had it over here and they couldn't figure it out. I had it over here and they couldn't figure it out. And I said, oh, you just reset the BMS. It'll come back online. You reset the BMS, now everything's working again. But was that necessarily the right thing to do if the battery had 60% charge and it's already disabling that stuff? It could have been because they left it for 2 or 3 days not starting, and the battery charge dropped down too low, and the system seen that there was a drain on it. And when you went to go start it back up, even though you have a good healthy battery, it seen too much of a drain and it started disabling those things for the safety of the vehicle. And then go back in and reset the BMS, and then everything's back online.
You ever
Okay.
seen it cut off the heated seats or AC seats? You ever seen
Yeah.
it cut that off? And the
Well, yeah,
radio?
Yeah, because they're non-essential.
Mhm.
Yeah. So before I replaced the batteries on one of the occasions where the truck died, I jumped it and I would operate the plow, and it started cutting off the HVAC. But after those batteries charged up, even the old ones, they charged back up for a while just on the alternator. That stopped happening.
Yeah.
But still replaced.
Charging systems are weird, man.
I was just gonna say that.
We just went through 6 alternators on a 2003 town car, and it was something that spanned back from programming issues back in the 2000s. And me and Cody and Aaron and Bearded Ford Tech and Ray and everybody, I don't think Mike was on at the time, but Mike knows about it. He's been around long enough to know the charging systems in the 2000s were a complete nightmare to work on, man. They were just it was a fiasco. My first vehicle that I worked on was like an 04 or 05 or something like that, Ford 500, and it came in. We put an alternator in it because the alternator shit the bed. Put an OE Ford one in there, and it would charge. It showed full voltage, but the charge light wouldn't go off. And I put a second one in there, and it showed full voltage, but the charge light wouldn't go off. I got a hold of Ford hotline, and they said put another OE one in there. So I did. The charge light wouldn't go off, but it was still charging fine. And they said, well, we're going to send you a Delphi with an updated connector, and you'll swap 2 pins around because the Gen Mon and Gen Con are reverse or something in the Delphi. So I did that, and it still wouldn't turn the charge light off. And I went through 3 Delphis, and then I sent them pictures of how my connector was wired. And they said, no, you did everything right. Let us go back to the drawing board and talk about all this, and we'll get back to you. In the meantime, I ran down the road to AutoZone, and I got a gold alternator and threw it in the vehicle, and it fixed the problem. And Ford was like, look, we are aware of this situation. We feel bad that you had to go through this, and the customer's car was held up. We're going to go ahead and pay all the labor that you had into all these alternators, and we're going to pay for the gold alternator because this is a problem that we're still dealing with all these years later in 2016. So the engineering department, hotline, or whoever, they all communicate. They went ahead and paid for all my labor and stuff in it because they did understand what was going on. And I didn't deal with that issue again until it was like a year later. I was working on a mid-2000 Escape. I went through 4 alternators. I got that online. And then it was last year I worked on a GT500, like an 07 or something, and went through 3 alternators and finally got it right after that. Well, now here we are, 2003 Lincoln Town Car, and I load test the Gen Mon, the Gen Con wires, the wake up circuit for the regulator. Everything was good. The connector was good. The fuses were good. The wires were good. And it's an OE like reman alternator in it, and it's just surging and surging and surging, and it won't get over like 12.7 volts, and then down to 12.1, and then up to 12.8, and down to 12.2. So the customer bought another OE alternator and put it in it, and was basically driving around the vehicle with a surging going on for a while, and it messed up the drivers in the PCM because he was constantly driving the vehicle like this all the time, and it was doing a number on that PCM. So I had to put a PCM in it, reprogram 2 keys, and then I went out and got an AutoZone Gold, put it in there, and now my voltage came up and was charging, no more surging, but my charge light wouldn't turn off. So I ordered another AutoZone Gold. It wouldn't. Charge light wouldn't turn off. So I ordered a 6G newer style alternator, and I flopped my Gen Mon and Gen Con wires to mimic the new alternator, which is later in 2003. And the voltage went up, but the charge light wouldn't go off. And I finally, at this point, I was so pissed off about everything that was going on because I'm dealing with another issue just like 2016 with that 500 all over again. So I go to hotline and I type up my story and stuff. And I'm like, look, this is what I'm working with. What do you guys want me to do? Because I'm tired of dealing with your crap from 20 years ago, and I'm going through the same problem all over again. So I go back out to my box and I'm like, you know what? Order me the Napa Power Plus Premium, whatever it is, their brand. I don't want the AutoZone. I don't want another Ford OE one. I want the Napa one. I stuck it in, started it up, charge light went off, everything charging right at 13.9, 13.8 volts, vehicle running beautifully. Fixed it, out the door, 8-mile test run, parked the vehicle, runs like brand new. I had to go through 6 freaking alternators, and 2 of them,
Jeez
the,
Louise.
the 2 OE ones from Ford were the worst ones out of the bunch. They would not even charge the car.
Holy shit.
I had that happen with a starter once. Same kind of stupid bullshit. You know, you're putting these alternators on just like he's doing, and you're second guessing yourself. You're like, what? How? What? Okay, let me get another one, and it happens. And the same thing happened to me, but except I put the starter in, and when I went to hook the batteries up, the truck started cranking. I'm like, what? How is that possible? I'm working on a 6.0, an 0660 dually. Thing was clean. I remember the truck right now. I remember it looks like I remember talking to the customer. I'm explaining to him, I'm like, sir, I don't know what's going on. This isn't supposed to happen. I'm gonna have to get another starter. Go down to parts, go to the wholesale place that we get the motor cab parts from, put one in. What the? No way. It took me, I think, 4 starters. The last one, I had to go get an aftermarket starter. I put that thing in. I had to have somebody else put the battery cable on because I'm like, I'm not doing this right now. And it wound up being it.
You touch it. You do it.
I'm
You put it on there. I don't want to touch it.
When was the last time you had to put
WTF.
an alternator on a Super Duty?
one alternator on a 6.7 in all of my 6.7 existence, and I've been in the 6.7 game since they were born. Since they were
So
a
I was having an issue with, the typical thing with snowplow operators. They're wondering why their HVAC's turning off and all that stuff. So I went to the alternator shop and I'm telling them, what I'm doing and stuff. And they're operating the plow and they're load testing it and stuff. And I go, so is this alternator not big enough? Is there something wrong with the alternator? And the guy was like, look, we rebuild alternators. It's a Ford Super Duty alternator. They're the best built alternators out there. You'll never have a problem. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, the way they run the diodes and the way they have the internals on these alternators, they're the best out there. You'll never have a problem. And I'm like, and my issue was I just didn't have enough reserve capacity from the batteries. I only had a single battery in that truck. But that was interesting to hear.
My issue with the plow stuff on the Super Duties is I had a guy come to me and he said, why is my truck dying whenever I go to use my plow? Like I'll go to use it and I'll go to start plowing, and as soon as I turn it on, I'm fine. But when I go to actuate it one way, it'll go. But when I go to drop the plow the other way, when I go to bring it down, the truck dies. And I was like, why is this going on? Let me go through your system. And I had to like literally unhook every single thing in his system. And then I got back to the solenoid box up by the plow where the cover goes over like the little solenoids that open and close for all the different selections on your remote. And when somebody put the cover back on it, they broke one of the bolts. And instead of actually tapping the bolt back out of it and putting a new bolt in, they siliconed the cover back down and they pinched one of the solenoid wires inside the metal case on the plow. So every time you would go to flip or push the button to go down, it would ground the wire out and send it through the truck and kill the truck.
Well,
so, yeah.
But also, too, whoever put that plow in didn't do it right because it's supposed to have a fuse in order to prevent it from killing the truck.
That might be how you do that, but that ain't how all these hacks do that. Yeah.
You guys ever had those ones where it's you're looking at it and the problem ends up being something so simple and you just feel really dumb afterwards? I'm sure you've had those.
Yeah, it's
It's
always
always
like
something stupid.
electrical issues are always like that.
I had it was a Lincoln Town car and it came from another dealer And this is back in 2015. The customer kept saying that it shuts off on him. Every time he turns, it shuts off. Okay, well, you think inertia switch or something like that. I'm driving it, it never shuts off. I pull it into the bay and turn into my stall and it shut off. I'm like, wow, okay. So we're going through it. The manager used to be a tech as well. After 2 days of fighting with this thing, he comes out there and goes, hey man, what color is the driver's side fender on that? I said, it's red on the inside, completely different color than the car. He was like, check that ground wire down there. Sure enough, the ground was loose and they didn't even it was on the paint. It wasn't even on metal.
Oh, wow.
That's what the problem was.
Mhm.
Poor
It's
ground.
just moving. Yeah.
Wow.
But that goes to the spending 2-3 days on it and you're only getting paid 2 hours. You know what I mean?
I just did that, but I charged the dealership all my time because we did a blower motor in a Super Duty 99, and it was working when it left, but then it stopped working again, and it was a comeback. And the tech that was working on it, my manager came to me and said, I want you to look at this. I don't want the other guy to look at it. I want you to do it. And I was like, what? That might come back. And he's like, yeah, I want you to look at it. You're good with this electrical stuff and everything else. And I'm going through the system and I'm looking at everything and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but I'm losing my ground signal at the switch, at the actual HVAC control head. And I said, why? I can light up an incandescent light with the power wire coming in, but if I hook it to power and I try to use the ground to turn the light on and load test the ground circuit, I don't have anything. So I wanted to make a point to show other technicians on how poor LED test lights are and how they're garbage. Just throw them away. I mean, they're no good for nothing that we do for the most part, unless you're getting into very serious stuff where you have to be very careful with testing, like in computer circuits and stuff like that, which we don't do that anyway. I took an LED light and I hooked it to power and I touched the LED light to the ground and it said 11.98 volts. And I said, see, it won't light an incandescent light, but it will show you that there's 11.98 volts there. That's because where this ground goes back in through this dash and turns across a cross member, it's a dedicated ground for these HVAC controls. Something back in there is pinched somewhere or it's severed somewhere and there's like one strand that's connected and it cannot supply the ground for this load correctly to make this blower motor work. So what do? Do I charge the customer all these hours to pull this dash and just run this one ground wire? Or do I just go ahead and cut it right at the control where I have enough to work with coming out and run my own dedicated ground wire over to the main grounds pack that goes through the kick panel? I ran my own ground over there and turned the system back on and it ran like it was brand new. So I had the dealer actually ate the labor on that. I got a kick out of that because I was like, fuck yeah, I get to charge these guys now.
He internally paid me. He internally paid me for extra time. But
yeah,
they even told us in electrical class, use an incandescent test light. It works every time.
Yeah, I don't like using LEDs for anything. I'll look, and that will be my indication. If it won't light an incandescent, but it will show me that there's voltage there on an LED, that's my test pattern. That's where I know I've got a problem.
That's a good idea. How many of you guys out there use Power Probe? I got Power Probe. I like
do.
Power Probe.
When used correctly.
Yeah, I like the Power Probe brand. I like the fact that the Power Probe gives you that little lead. That's your ground. How many times do we need just a ground for something, or we're doing a load test and we just need we need power and ground, but we can't do power and ground with the rocker switch at the same time. It's like, So I like, the only thing I wish I had was a different case for it. My coworker's got like a blue flame one. My other coworker's got a camo one. And I
What do
just
you
got
want,
this
like a bubble
I got
gum
the
thing?
original red one.
Yeah, I just got this red plastic one. I was like, oh, I like theirs. It looks cool. Just
I
something
got
different.
the Gen 3. The Gen 3 is really cool. It's
Oh,
more
yeah.
vibrant lime, and the screen, if you're
Yeah.
laying upside down, you can hit the button and it will flip the screen so you can actually read it the right way while you're upside down.
What
Yeah,
else does it
so
do? You can get power ground, doesn't it? Do have another feature?
there's other features, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
there-
haven't seen too much.
What I like about it though is you can test something, and I did that with this Power Probe. I showed people how this actually works on one of my most recent videos. is if I touch it to ground, I get this real nice audible sound. If I touch it to power, I get this real nice audible sound. And I had a situation where I was losing the power wire, but the ground was fine. And I touched it to ground and the light lit up on the top of the screen. And I had that real nice, loud, audible sound for ground being good. It's got that nice, clear path. Now let's go over to power. Wait a second. It's lighting it up and it's saying that there's power there, but the audible sound is no good, which is indicating that it does not actually have a good power source. Now let's go through and confirm with an incandescent light. And I go through and touch my power source to ground, and I use that little lead you were talking about, Aaron. I ground it out. I know I got a good ground source there. It's right to the battery, and it won't light the incandescent light. I said, so this is where you can use this power probe in conjunction with other test tools to really define whether or not you found the problem.
It's
So
I have
the power probe, can it apply voltage?
yeah.
Hmm.
You know
if you
that
don't
rocker
have a-
switch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was using it the other day.
Yeah.
It's got a 25 or 30 amp breaker built into it, so you can apply power to whatever you want.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
And it's got lights on it. So
It's
if you're underneath
strong
the
enough
dash-
to be dangerous in the wrong person's hands.
If you
Mhm.
guys are
You know,
looking for,
You need to know what you're doing with a power probe. It's not just a power whatever you want and see what happens.
some facilities, hey,
What if you
some
burn up a little
facilities will
wire?
not let you use a power probe. Like when you sign on there as a tech, they'll say, look, we don't allow power probes in any of our electrical testing. So if you're going to bring it in to
Oh,
work for
wow.
us, because they've had such bad experience with guys not knowing how to use them and apply power or ground to something and smoke a module or a driver or whatever it may be because they didn't know what they were doing.
Mhm.
So if you guys are looking for a power probe, I like power probe because it's really robust. If you're getting it from a tool truck, warranties are typically pretty good. If you don't want to pay the money that we pay, we pay the extra money because we need it to work on your stuff and we don't want cheap stuff. You can go on Amazon and Ansel has a PB100. It's called a PB100 and you get like 50 foot of lead. It's like twice the length that you get from a standard power probe, and you can find them for like $90 versus like the $275 that I paid for the name brand one with half the lead. And it works. And they
And
work.
you can
They
buy
work.
extra lead for Power Probe too, but it's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, but I like Power Probe because it's way more robust than the cheaper stuff. But I have used that extra long lead when I'm working on a Super Duty and I got to go from the front all the way to the back, or maybe if it's got a trailer or something hooked up to it, I need that extra length and I don't want to spend the extra $100 and some for the lead that Anthony was talking about. I just pull out the Ansel PB100 or the PB100 and I'll use that instead. And it's never failed me.
I love the power probe.
Yeah, I do too. I really like their tools. They're very, very nice.
One thing that I like is, I've used it a couple of times, is the power probe kit that I bought has 2 boxes and it's called a short detector. And I can put one box at like the beginning, let's say at the PCM connector and, you know, go on the circuit that I'm looking for. I'm at the DEF injector and I can go down the harness that is in, and the other box sends a signal through that harness, and if it's connected to, you know, up at the PCM, it'll, you know, beep beep.
Yeah.
Beep. So it's kind of cool when looking for shorts, kind of like a stud finder in a in a house.
Well, now they have them on your cell phone.
Well, I guess that'll end it here. We'll reconvene next week. I know we will have some things going on, some stuff I want to talk about. We're going to be doing at the end of this week and into next week, so that's going to be exciting. Is this a family show? You all are the part of the family. This is the Power Show family. And this is the crew: Rain Man, Bray, Ford Boss, Bearded Ford Tech, Chan Man, all the way in the Great White North. DS, he didn't fall asleep. I pledge you, sir, and CP. We love y'all. I appreciate you. Old enough to be They're 23, brother. Appreciate you all. Till next time.
Rain Man, you have another